Hello everybody, it's Vertical Sandwich. Welcome back to Book Reviews. So today we're doing Rama Revealed. This is part 4 in the 4-part Rama series that we're doing. So, if you haven't read Rama 2, The Garden of Rama, those will be spoiled by this review, so don't watch it. Go read those books, come back to this review. If you have read them, you're going to need to read this book anyway. It's the conclusion book for the series, so you don't really need a review. So review over. Bye, everybody. No, just kidding. Anyway, so spoiler alert is what I'm really coming down to. So, at the end of the Garden of Rama, Nicole is in prison awaiting trial, I believe. I didn't reread the book for this review, I guess. And so this book picks up at that cliffhanger. On its mysterious voyage through deep space, a massive alien starship carries its passengers to the end of a generations-long odyssey. The great experiment has failed. Rama 3 has become an interspecies battleground, and the intergalactic arc is headed for its final destination, the Node. To some, the Node is a vast engineering station. To others, it's a place of wonders and miracles. To the handful of renegade humans seeking the secret of the ship's inner workings, it is a summons to final judgment. Here the stunning climax of the Rama journey awaits. The unforgettable revelation of the true identity of the beings behind this strange, glittering trek across the cosmos. Okay, so here's the thing about Rama Revealed. Well, wait, we can actually just read here this thing here. What do you mean? Richard asked. I explained it to Mother back at the Emerald City. I guess she didn't have a chance to tell you, Ellie swallowed before continuing. Their true language has 64 color symbols, just as I mentioned, but 11 of them are not accessible to us. 8 lie in the infrared part of the spectrum, and another 3 in the ultraviolet, so we can only distinguish clearly 53 of their symbols. This was quite a problem in the beginning. Luckily, 5 of the 11 outside symbols are clarifiers. Anyway, for our benefit, they have developed what amounts to a new dialect of their language, using only the color wavelengths that we can see. Archie says that this new dialect is already being taught in some of their advanced classes. Amazing! Richard said. You mean they have adjusted their language to accommodate our physical limitations? Well, not exactly, Father. They still use their true language when talking to each other. That's why I cannot always understand what they are saying. However, this new dialect has been developed and is now being expanded, just to make communications with us as easy as possible. Richard finished his lunch. He was about to ask Allie another question about the octospider language when he heard Nicole yell, "Richard!" She shouted from 50 meters away. Look over there, in the air, towards the forest. Richard craned his neck and shaded his eyes. In the distance he could see 2 birds flying towards them. For some reason, his recognition was delayed until he heard the familiar shrieking sound. Then he jumped up and ran in the direction of the avians. Tammy and Timmy, now full grown, swooped down out of the sky and landed beside him. Richard was ecstatic. His wards jabbered incessantly and pressed their velvet underbellies against him for a rub. So, this book was this thing. So, in Garden of Rama, humans are brought aboard the Rama spacecraft, put in the habitat with Nicole and Richard and their family. And those people start a civilization, both good and bad. There's a criminal enterprise, criminal overlord, who starts a war with kind of original settlers. And this leads those original settlers to escape the human habitat in Rama. And that's where this book is, right? Right here. That's where this book goes to. So then we get to meet the other inhabitants of the Rama ships and see what happens. But this book is just a gigantic conflict buffet. I mean, you by now you care about these characters, and Gentry Lee and Arthur Clarke take them to places that are heartrending, are joyous, and it's very hard to talk about this book without destroying the plot. But the previous books establish that there are 3 creatures aboard the Rama space vessel. There are octospiders and they're birds. And the examination of the octospiders and the birds and their relationships to the humans in this book is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And the way the octospiders feel about humans, and the way that the birds feel about humans, and the way that the birds and octospiders. But really, it's man's inhumanity to man that wins this book. I mean, this book has just great villains and believable heroes that you really root for. And then, you want a book like this to have a fantastic ending, and it has an ending that I think back on having read it. Like, I think back on how this book ends and just goes, there's no possible way that this book could have ended better. Like, no, there's no way. This book it's just believably whole. There's something spiritually and emotionally complete about the lives of the characters in this book. Or in this book series. And that's why you should read this book series. It doesn't matter, like, if you like Rendezvous with Rama and you're like, man, I want to learn way more about the spaceships, forget it. Forget it. Like, the second Rama 2, Garden of Rama, and Rama Revealed make a trilogy of this amazing journey with these characters that you care about that completes itself in just, like, the most beautiful way possible. And I'm not saying that, like, I'm not saying that things end well, or that what you're going to say is, like, because I don't particularly like everything wrapped up in a nice, neat package. Everybody's perfectly fine science fiction. You should know that about me by now. What I am saying is that this ends in a way that is fulfilling for the reader. Let's say that. There is something intangible about how well this series is this trilogy or this series of books is constructed and concludes. Like I said, it's hard to find words for how well this is put together without just kind of spoiling it about what happens to characters and how they become different characters. Like, that's the amazing thing, is that the people who get lost in Rama in book 2 are not the same people who are dealing with conflict in book 4. They're definitely different people. They've aged, they've become parents or guardians, and they've become parts of communities. They've had to stand up for what they believe in against, like, insurmountable odds, and they've experienced loss, and they've changed, and that it's all put together so beautifully for this book that I think it's worth reading the first 3 to read this book to just come to that conclusion, because we're going to talk about sci-fi series that don't do this. Like, we're going to talk about, and again, I know I talked about this when I talked about, like, I think Rama 1. When we talk about the Hitchhiker's Guide series, I love the conclusion, I don't love the intermediate part. When we talk about the Ringworld series, I like, I'm trying to think about I'm going to have to look up the Ringworld series. I love the first book, and I didn't really like anything beyond that. Or when we talk about the Riverworld series, and the first 2 books are so unbelievably amazing, and the conclusion is so garbage. It's so garbage. It just comes across as being it's just trash. I just didn't like it at all. And sorry, Larry Niven, because, he's the Ringworld guy. He's at the Riverworld guy. That's Philip Jose Farmer. But we're going to have to talk about that, because To Our Scattered Bodies Go won the Hugo Award. Now, those things being said. I mean, it's just that series tend to go places that you don't want them to go. Or they tend to be, like, I feel like with Riverworld, I feel like a conclusion was labored. You know, that something was going and the story kind of got out of the author's hands, and he just said, now it's time to wrap this up, let's figure something out. And I feel like in Hitchhikers, that at some point the joke becomes the focus of the story. That it's all like a setup for the joke, and then when they decide to get back to the story and go, we got to kind of wind this up, it just works out to get so good. The 5th book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series is so great. It's so amazing. Anyway, that's how I feel about a lot of series. But this one felt beautiful. Like, it felt like somebody had written a 1,500-page novel and went, this is too long, let's cut it into 3 parts. And that's rare. It's rare that a story flows so well between books. And it does. And that it tends to be such that the books tend to be so different. Because they are. Rama 2 is a completely different exploration. You would never know Garden of Rama is coming reading Rama 2. You wouldn't go, oh, I get you. I know where this is going to end up. No, you don't. You don't. You really don't. And then I can't wrap my head around how good Rama 4 is. Like, that's all we're going to call it. We're going to call it Rama 4, Rama Revealed. I can't tell you how amazing it is. I just can't. And you may read it and go like, I didn't think that was amazing. I think you're a jerk. And that's fair. But you would have to admit, I don't know what kind of reader could read the Rama series, and I guess in some way this is kind of a recap of all of our reviews of the Rama series. But I don't know what kind of reader could read the entire series and not go, wow, I really believed in the characters. Like not believed that they would, succeed against insurmountable odds, but I believed that they exist. Like I understood them and I felt for them and I loved them and I cared about them. And it's hard to do better than that if you're an author. It really is. It's really hard to not or it's really hard to make people care about your characters and love them. And I loved the characters. I loved Richard and I loved Nicole in these books. I loved them. The thought of horrible things happening to them was awful to me. And the fact that there was a villain that opposed them, and I was just like, I hope horrible things happen to him. That's the way this book made me feel. And I'm a cynical, jaded jerk when it comes to books. So right now we're just doing all the reviews of books, the easy reviews of books I like. But eventually we're gonna get to books I didn't like, and I'm gonna be like, listen, here's the thing about blah blah blah. And this book, these books made me excited about books. It made me excited about the characters and their stories. And really love sharing their lives with them. And it's huge. It's enormous. So obviously if you haven't been listening to my spoiler messages and you haven't read any of these books, just read them. Because I've really tiptoed around important things to keep from really spoiling the central conflicts in these books. But I mean, just read them. Just read these books, because here's the thing: is you're not going to run into another sci-fi series like this. Believe me, I've tried. And in general, series are hard to maintain. Maybe it's the hardest thing for an author to do, is to stay fresh and keep people interested in stuff over the course of multiple books. And I don't know. At some point we're gonna have to talk about some other members of series. And like I said, I've never found one where I've loved every book except this one. This is the only series of books I've ever read where I liked every single book. But I love Rama Revealed. I love Rama Revealed for being the strongest installment in the series. It's genuinely the strongest installment in the series, and it'll haunt you. It'll haunt you the way you think, how much you worry about these characters and how much you feel for them, and when bad things happen to people that you've grown to care about, you just hate it. And when good things happen, you're just super excited. There were points where I was yelling. I was figuratively yelling. I'm not going to yell while reading a book, but there were points where Nicole's in prison, and I'm just rooting for her to get out, and just stuff happens, and I'm like, that's amazing. The whole book is just fantastic. So good, so good. This series. And we're going to talk about a lot of other Arthur C. Clarke stuff, because he's a giant in the field of science fiction. He's enormous in the field of science fiction. But we're not going to talk about anything I liked as much as this, because I love the Rama series. I think it's amazing. I think it's a great series. Some other series is popping into my head right now. Can't think of this But yes, I love this series. So you should read it. You should read the whole series, but not before you listen to this review. And if you already listened to the reviews and you haven't read the series, I don't know what to tell you. I spoiled some stuff for you, but you should still read the books, because they're still unbelievably good. And they're the best thing I've read by a guy who is, again, a legend in science fiction. So, yeah. Rama series. Read it. And let me know what you think. If you've already read this book and you somehow hated it, or for some reason you didn't find the series impressive, let me know why. And maybe I'll tell you why you're wrong. I don't know. Comment section. So this book and all the other books in the series are available where fine books are sold, or whatever, wherever you get your books. Maybe you steal them from the local library, like I did that copy of Animal Farm years ago and then forgot to return it and returned it 10 years later. Maybe you do that. Maybe you get them off of Amazon. I put the ISBN in the comments of the videos so you can buy this book, and I would suggest that you do. So when we come back, we're going to be doing some non-Hugo Award winners. I have them sitting right here, and I will talk to you guys for that. Bye, everybody.